Is your child painfully shy, or is something deeper going on? In this video, I'll help you understand the difference between shyness and selective mutism and what to look for if you're concerned. Hi, I'm Claire Dean Sinclair. I'm a child clinical psychologist specializing in working with kids with selective mutism and their parents. If your child is super chatty at home, talks their head off, chatterbox, funny, gregarious at home, but in public they are silent or have a lot of difficulty speaking to new people, this video is for you. Let's talk about the difference between shyness and selective mutism so you can understand more about what might be going on for your child. First, let's talk about what is shyness. Shyness is a common personality trait that a lot of kids experience. Kids who are shy generally have a sense of hesitation or uncertainty about new people or new environments or new situations. They may take a little bit longer to warm up. They may be more inhibited in unfamiliar situations. But the important thing to know about kids who are shy is that they eventually do warm up with time and with support. They may at first speak very softly, perhaps cling to a parent, but their communication generally does improve over time as they start to become more comfortable in that situation. Selective mutism, however, is different. Selective mutism is an anxiety disorder that is diagnosed when a child is able to speak comfortably in certain situations, for example, at home with their family, but either are silent or struggle greatly to speak in other select situations, most commonly at school. Most of these kids with selective mutism desperately want to speak, but their anxiety and their inhibition stops them. They may speak totally normally at home, but be completely shut down in other situations such as restaurants or school, play dates, birthday parties, even with familiar people and people who they feel comfortable with, like their family members or friends or teachers. Some important symptoms to look out for with selective mutism are if your child, again, speaks comfortably at home, but is consistently silent or extremely limited in their verbal speech in other situations. And if this is persisting for at least a month or more, that's when we might start to look potentially at selective mutism. Selective mutism can also affect more than just speech. These kids often have a lot of difficulty going to the bathroom independently, eating on their own, advocating for themselves. They often rely greatly on gestures or nodding or looking to their parents to speak for them. Why is it important to tell the difference between if a child is simply shy or if they meet criteria for selective mutism? While shyness may be a personality trait that persists throughout a person's lifetime, most people who experience shyness are able to function just fine. They may take a little while to warm up, they may be a bit more introverted, but people who are shy are able to function just fine in school, in work, they're able to make friends, they're able to do things that they enjoy. They often don't need a ton of extra help or support to be able to function well in their life. However, for children who experience selective mutism, it can majorly impact their life. If kids are not able to speak at school, for example, they often struggle to fully participate in their education. They may not be able to raise their hand and say that they don't understand a lesson. They may not be able to tell a nurse or a teacher when they're hurt on the playground. As they get older, they often struggle to make friends, and down the line, this can unfortunately lead to increased risk of social isolation, further anxiety, and even depression. Many parents of kids with selective mutism who I've talked to, unfortunately, worry a lot about their kids' ability to tell someone if they're lost or tell another child to stop bothering them, or to be able to speak up if they don't understand something in school. So the key difference between shyness and selective mutism is the fact that it impacts greatly on functioning. So, how do we tell the difference between kids who are shy versus kids who experience an anxiety disorder like selective mutism? I'm going to talk about 5 key points to consider to differentiate between kids who are shy versus selective mutism. Let's get started. Point number 1 is duration. How long does a child take to warm up to somebody new? For shy kids, they may take a little while to warm up to somebody new. For example, these may be the kids who take a day or two to feel comfortable with their new teacher at the beginning of the school year, or may play a little bit separate from the other neighborhood kids, but eventually warm up and start to play together. In contrast, selective mutism persists for a very long time. If left untreated, selective mutism can persist for years and sometimes throughout a child's entire childhood. These are the kids who say they like their teacher, they have fun with their friends, they are very interested perhaps in playing with their neighbor. They just don't talk to any of those people, again, for maybe the whole school year. Number 2, context. It's called selective mutism because it happens in certain select situations, but not in other situations. For example, kids with selective mutism talk like crazy at home. They're very comfortable speaking at home, but in other select situations, like at school, they're silent. Kids who are shy tend to show a similar pattern in most situations that they're in. Number 3, level of distress. Kids who are shy, again, appear to be inhibited, maybe a bit uncomfortable in new situations, overwhelming situations, situations with lots of people, situations where they're meeting somebody new. They may be the kids, again, who are clinging to their parents or don't want to join in right away. However, as time goes by, they tend to warm up. When people ask them questions, they generally can get an answer out after a little while. Kids who are shy are able to function in their day-to-day lives, even if they're a little bit inhibited at first. A child with an anxiety disorder like selective mutism, however, tend to show very high levels of distress when put in social situations or situations that require speaking. These are often the kids who look like a deer in the headlights when their teacher asks them a simple question such as, "How was your weekend?" or "Are you ready for art class?" Their brain misinterprets those situations as being dangerous. So you see a very high level of distress, discomfort, sometimes even panic when they are asked a question or put in a situation where they need to speak. Number 4, nonverbal communication. Although some kids with selective mutism can rely on some nonverbal responses, such as thumbs up, thumbs down, shrugs, head nods, that type of thing, many kids with selective mutism struggle even to communicate in that way. It can affect more than just speaking. It can affect a child's ability to communicate at all. In contrast, kids who are shy tend to be able to communicate even using nonverbal gestures or nonverbal communication, and are able to warm up relatively quickly to using their voice. Number 5, impact. Again, a child who is simply shy tends to get along generally okay in life. They're able to make friends. They're able to participate fully in school. It takes them a little while to warm up, but they are able to warm up eventually. The important thing to know about kids with selective mutism is that it can impact greatly on their functioning. It can make it much more difficult for them to participate in school. They may miss entire lessons because they can't say that they didn't understand. Selective mutism may lead kids to have much more difficulty making friends and becoming part of a social group, which becomes more and more important for them as they get older. Selective mutism can even impact on a child's ability to function in the world or get by or tell somebody that they need help. I have heard from families in which their child has gotten hurt at camp or at school, sometimes even seriously, and haven't been able to tell anybody that they were hurt. I've even heard heartbreaking stories about children who missed their bus stop and were not able to tell the bus driver that they missed their stop. So they stayed on that bus the entire route. And of course, their parents are panicking. They don't know where their child is, and the child is frozen in fear. Those are just a few examples of the impact that selective mutism can have on the children who are experiencing it. And of course, the impact that it can have on their parents. If this sounds like your child, please know you are not alone and there is help. The earlier we intervene, the better the outcomes. The good news about selective mutism is that it's extremely treatable with the right approaches. If this video helped you today, please give it a like and subscribe. Follow along for more videos about selective mutism and about how you, as the parent, can be the biggest help for your child to find their brave voice. See you in the next video.